I live in Chicago, but a few years ago, I stayed in Charleston, South Carolina, for a few months. When my visit ended, I returned to Chicago by ship. In those days, people used sailing ships to travel. It took about a week for a ship to sail from Charleston to Chicago. If the weather was good, the journey sometimes took 5 days. If there wasn't much wind and we had to wait for the right tide, the journey could take 9 days. There was no fixed schedule for ships. Passengers had to visit a shipping office and ask a clerk where the ships were going. The clerk would tell the passengers the ship names and their destinations. Then he wrote down the passengers' names next to the ship they chose. The ship captains would check this list and send messages to the passengers when their ships were ready to leave. A ship was going to sail from Charleston in the middle of March, and its destination was Chicago. I booked a cabin on the ship and waited in a hotel. I was curious about the names of the other travelers. Since the list of passengers was kept in the shipping office, I went there to check it. I recognized one name on the list, Howard Brown. Howard and I had studied together at the same university. A few months earlier, a friend in New York had written me a letter saying that Howard had married a beautiful and charming young woman. I wanted to meet Mrs. Brown. I had never seen her. Why? Were Howard and his wife in Charleston? Howard was an artist. He painted pictures and also bought and sold vintage paintings. Old, valuable paintings were worth a lot of money in Chicago. Was that the answer? Maybe Howard had found an expensive painting in Charleston. There were many old families in South Carolina who had brought many paintings from Europe. Was Howard taking an old painting to Chicago? I knew I would find the answer to both questions soon. As we were traveling on the same ship, a captain sent a message. His ship was sailing to Chicago the next day, August 14th. I went to the harbor and boarded the ship. I checked the list of cabins. Howard Brown had booked 3 cabins. He had the 2 cabins opposite mine, plus the cabin right next to mine. He wasn't traveling alone. He had 3 ladies with him, his wife and his 2 sisters. The 2 sisters were in one cabin opposite mine. I thought Howard and his wife would take the second cabin opposite mine, but who would be in the third cabin? I was surprised when I finally met Mr. and Mrs. Brown. Howard looked ill and was not happy to see me. "My friend, we have so much to talk about. It's good to see you. Is this lady your wife?" I asked. The lady with Howard was wearing a velvet-thin cloth covered her face, so I couldn't see her clearly. She politely said good morning to me. She spoke slowly and had a South Carolina accent, not a Chicago accent. Howard didn't say anything. To me, he took his wife into the cabin opposite mine and shut the door. Howard has become very rude, I thought. But he is an artist. Artists can be selfish. We will talk later. I wondered who was staying in the third cabin. Maybe a servant? Will stay in the cabin beside me, I thought to myself. Just then, 4 men brought a long box onto the ship, was about 6 feet long. They carried the box to Howard Brown's third cabin, the one right next to mine. They put the box down on the floor while they opened the door. The words Brown and Chicago were written on the top. I watched the 4 men carry the long box into the cabin. Then I heard the men talking. The cabin walls were thin, and I could hear their conversation. "It smells bad, doesn't it?" said one man. "Yes. What do you think is in it?" said the other man. The 4 men left the cabin and closed. The door, I wanted to look at the strange box more carefully, but I needed to speak to Howard first. I believed there were paintings in the box, and I wanted to see them. What had Howard found in Charleston? Maybe the paintings were very expensive. I saw Howard later that evening when all the passengers were eating dinner in the dining room. I tried to speak to him, but he didn't want to talk. He was very rude to me, and he didn't seem hungry. He ate nothing. "Are you ill?" "We're old friends, but you're acting like you don't know me," I said. Howard still said nothing. I was angry with him now and wanted to be rude too. "Are you worried about the things in your box?" "I have guessed what's inside it, but I won't tell anyone," I said. I immediately regretted saying those words. Suddenly, Howard Brown's face went very pale. His eyes were large and bright. Was he ill, or was he going crazy? Howard Brown suddenly fell to the floor. He had fainted. The captain and 2 sailors took Howard to his cabin. I went to my cabin and tried to sleep, but I couldn't rest. I heard someone open the door of the cabin next to mine. Had Howard gone into the cabin? Had he gone to look at his pictures? I heard the sound of metal on wood. Was Howard opening the box? I may have slept a little then, or maybe I dreamed. But I thought I heard the sound of someone crying. Howard stayed in that cabin and did not come out. Food was brought to him, but he didn't eat it. Those paintings must be so valuable that Howard can't leave them for a minute, I said to myself then. I thought of another reason for my old friend's strange behavior. Mrs. Brown did not stay in her cabin. She came out and talked to other passengers. I saw her in the dining room and was very surprised. I had been told that Mrs. Brown was beautiful and charming. But she was neither beautiful nor charming, and she was not young. My friend had said Mrs. Brown was from Chicago, but this lady spoke with a South Carolina accent. Was this the reason for my friend's strange behavior? Had Howard made a mistake? Had he married the wrong woman? Was he sad and upset because of this? Then something happened, and I forgot all about Howard Brown's secrets. A few days after we left Charleston, there was a storm. The wind blew, and the waves grew taller and taller. It was a very bad storm, and the wind was strong. It blew all night. The ship moved from side to side and almost tipped over. The captain could no longer steer the ship, and it headed toward the shore. The ship hit some giant rocks on the coast and began to sink. Soon, seawater reached the cabins. We'll quickly leave the ship. Go to the small boats. Don't stop to take anything with you? The captain shouted to everyone. I ran out of my cabin and saw Mrs. Brown. The sailors helped us get into a rowboat. There were 17 of us in the boat, and the captain was with us. It was daylight, but black clouds filled the sky. We looked up at the ship. It was low in the water and sinking. Suddenly, we saw Howard Brown. We had forgotten him. Howard was pulling the long box toward the side of the ship, pulling it toward our rowboat. He looked terribly frightened. "Mr. Brown, get into this boat now. The ship is sinking," the captain shouted. "I cannot leave my box. I must get into the boat with my box," Howard replied. "No, we can only take you. You cannot bring your box. Quick, get into the boat." "The ship is sinking," the captain shouted again. "I cannot leave my box," Howard shouted back. "Is your box more important than your life?" I shouted. Howard looked at me with madness in his eyes. He hated me. He hated my question. "Yes, it is," Howard shouted again. He lifted the box onto the side of the ship. As he pushed it over the side, both Howard and the box fell into the sea. They did not come up again. "Move the boat away from the ship," the captain shouted. We rowed away from the sinking ship. In just a few minutes, the ship had sunk beneath the sea. A week later, I met the captain again. We talked about the storm and how we escaped the sinking ship. We also talked about Howard and the long box. It was a mistake to bring that box onto the ship. The box brought bad luck to the ship. "I didn't want to take it," the captain said. "What was inside the box?" I asked. "The body of Mr. Brown's dead wife," the captain replied. Mr. Brown's wife died suddenly on August 13th in Charleston. One day before we sailed, Mr. Brown had to return to Chicago, and he wanted to take his dead wife's body with him. The captain explained that none of the other captains wanted to carry a dead body because some people believe it brings bad luck. But Mr. Brown asked me again and again. He became very upset. At last, I agreed. He lied to the shipping clerk and the other passengers. He said there were expensive paintings in the box. Then, who is the Mrs. Brown that I met? I asked him. She was his servant. Howard loved his beautiful wife very much. "Only I knew the truth," said the captain.